Most people spend their entire lives working for money and never once stop to question whether that arrangement was ever supposed to be permanent. Let me submit to you that the way the majority of people relate to money is not a financial problem. It is a design problem. And when something operates outside of its design, it does not just underperform. It destroys itself and everything connected to it. You have watched people earn more and stress more at the same time. You have seen salaries double while peace disappeared. You have witnessed promotions arrive alongside depression, and rather than questioning the system, rather than interrogating the relationship, people assumed the problem was the amount. They told themselves they simply needed more income, more hustle, more sacrifice. But you don't need motivation, you need revelation. Because the issue was never the quantity of money moving through your hands. The issue was the direction of control. Who was serving whom? There is a kingdom principle that most financial teachers will never tell you, because most financial teachers were trained by the same broken system they are trying to help you escape. The principle is this: money is a tool, not a master. And a tool that is not governed governs you. A hammer left in the hands of someone who does not understand construction does not build a house. It breaks things. Fingers, walls, relationships, dreams. The tool itself is not evil. The absence of design understanding is the catastrophe. Where purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. And most people are abusing money without realizing it. Not because they are irresponsible by nature, but because nobody showed them the blueprint. Nobody sat them down and said, hey, here is what money actually is. Here is what it was designed to do. Here is how it multiplies. Here is how it serves. And here is what happens when you reverse the relationship and begin serving it instead. You don't need a lecture on budgeting. You need a correction at the level of understanding, because behavior always follows belief. And if you believe that money is something you chase, you will spend your life running. If you believe money is something you manage, you will spend your life counting. But if you understand that money is something you deploy, everything changes. The language changes. The decisions change. The outcomes change. Let me submit to you that the wealthiest people on earth are not the hardest working people on earth. That fact alone should interrupt something in you. Because if the relationship between effort and wealth were linear, then the person working 3 jobs would be the richest person in the room. But that is not what you observe. What you observe is that some people work less and accumulate more, not because life is unfair, though sometimes it is, but because they understand a principle the laborer was never taught. They understand that when money works, you rest. And when you work, money rests. And whoever is resting in that relationship is the one in control. This is not a conversation about privilege. This is a conversation about design. The manufacturer of any system always encodes instructions into the product. When those instructions are ignored, the product malfunctions. And a malfunctioning financial life is not a sign that you are cursed. It is a sign that you are operating outside of the encoded instructions. So before we talk about investments, income streams, assets, and leverage, we must correct the foundation, because you cannot build a skyscraper on the belief system of a tent. The first principle is this: Money responds to assignment, not effort. This is the correction most people need to hear slowly. Effort produces income. Assignment produces wealth. There is a difference between the two that most people never learn to see. Income is what you receive in exchange for your time, your labor, your presence. Wealth is what accumulates when your decisions continue producing outcomes even after your presence is removed. The farmer who plants a seed and walks away does not stop the seed from growing. The seed has received its assignment. It knows what to do with soil, water, and time. Your money must receive the same kind of assignment. The moment money enters your possession without a clear assignment, it begins to drift. And drifting money does not rest. It leaves. It finds lifestyle. It finds impulse. It finds the path of least resistance, which is almost always consumption. But money that has been given assignment behaves differently. It reports to a function. It moves toward multiplication. It aligns with a purpose larger than a single transaction. The application of this principle is not complicated, but it is demanding. Before money leaves your hands, every unit must have a name, not a category on a spreadsheet, an assignment. This unit builds. This unit protects. This unit grows. This unit serves the vision. When money has no assignment from you, it will accept assignment from the culture around you. And the culture around you has been expertly designed to assign your money to other people's visions. The person who ignores this principle keeps earning and keeps emptying. The person who obeys it begins to notice that the same income produces different outcomes because the variable was never the amount. The variable was the assignment. The second principle, money multiplies in the direction of understanding, not in the direction of hope. Hope is not a financial strategy. Hope is an emotional posture. And while hope has its place in the human experience, it has no productive function in a financial system. Understanding does. When you understand how a market moves, you make decisions that align with that movement. When you understand how compound growth operates, you stop treating time as an enemy and start treating it as your most valuable partner. When you understand how assets generate income, you stop trading your hours for dollars as if that were the only transaction available to you. There is a teaching story that illuminates this principle well. There was once a man given a plot of land by his father. Two brothers received the same gift on the same day, the same acreage, the same soil quality, the same access to water. The first brother looked at the land and felt grateful. He built a home on it. He maintained it. He kept it clean. He was proud of it. The second brother studied the land. He learned what it could grow. He learned the seasons. He learned what the surrounding market needed. He planted. He harvested. He reinvested the harvest. He hired workers who understood what he was building. 20 years later, one brother had a beautiful piece of land with a home on it, and the other brother had a network of farms producing income for 3 generations. Same gift, same starting point, same land, different relationship to understanding. The difference was not talent. The difference was not luck. The difference was that one man treated the gift as a destination and the other treated the gift as a seed. You don't need more gifts. You need a different relationship with the gifts already in your hands. The third principle, the relationship between you and money is set by your identity, not your income. This is perhaps the most dangerous truth in this entire conversation, because it exposes the deepest layer of why most financial advice produces temporary results. When a person with a poverty identity receives a large sum of money, the money does not change the identity. The identity changes the money. Studies have documented this pattern repeatedly. Lottery winners return to their previous financial state within a few years, not because of bad luck, but because their identity set the ceiling and money obeys the ceiling. The identity says, people like me do not keep large amounts of money. The identity says, this is not normal for someone from where I come from. The identity says, wealth is for a different kind of person. And the money I, faithful to the instruction encoded in the identity, finds its way out. Let me submit to you that financial transformation without identity transformation is renovation without foundation work. You paint the walls, you change the floors, but the foundation is still cracked. And eventually, the building reflects the foundation. The work must go deeper. You must interrogate the stories you inherited about money. You must examine the beliefs that were handed to you before you were old enough to evaluate them. You must locate where you learned that wanting more was greedy, that rich people are corrupt, that financial struggle is noble, that comfort is a reward reserved for a future you have not yet earned. Those beliefs are not wisdom. They are instructions encoded into you by environments that were themselves operating in misunderstanding. And you are allowed to reject inherited misunderstanding, not with anger, with authority. The application here is deliberate. You must begin to speak about money the way a manufacturer speaks about a tool, without shame, without apology, without the discomfort that signals a wrong relationship. A carpenter does not feel guilty for owning high-quality tools. A surgeon does not feel embarrassed for investing in the best instruments. These are professionals who understand that the quality of their tools affects the quality of their output. Money is your tool, and a professional relationship with your tools is not greed, it is excellence. The fourth principle, passive income is not laziness. It is the design expressing itself at full capacity. There is a cultural narrative that labels income earned without direct labor as undeserved. This narrative is not only wrong, it is a trap, because it ensures that the people who believe it never build the systems that would free them. And so they remain in a cycle of trading time for money, which is inherently limited because time is finite. You cannot manufacture more hours. You can manufacture more systems. A system is simply a structure that produces outcomes repeatedly without requiring your direct involvement in every cycle. A business that runs with a well-trained team, a property that generates rent while you sleep, an investment that compounds interest across decades, a digital product that solves a problem and sells continuously. These are not shortcuts. These are the mature expressions of financial design. Shortcuts try to bypass work. Systems absorb work upfront and distribute the reward across time. The difference is enormous. There is another teaching story worth dwelling in. There was once a water carrier in a village. Every morning he walked to the river with two large buckets. He filled them, he carried them back. He was paid per delivery. He was strong. He was consistent. He was respected. For years, he was the only water in the village. But one year, a younger man arrived and began asking different questions. Not how do I carry more water, But how do I build a pipe from the river to the village? The water carrier laughed. Building a pipe would take months. It would require investment. It would require planning, physical labor, without immediate payment and delayed results. The water carrier continued his deliveries. The young man built his pipe. When the pipe was complete, the young man slept, and water arrived in the village anyway. The water carrier was still strong, still consistent, still respected, but he was also still exhausted and entirely dependent on his ability to continue the physical act that had become his only source. One injury, one illness, one season of weakness, and his income disappeared. The pipe had no such vulnerability. You don't build a pipe because you are lazy. You build a pipe because you understand leverage. And leverage is the language of design operating at full capacity. The fifth principle, savings without strategy, is storage without purpose. Let me be direct here, because there is a generation of people who were told that saving money is the goal. Save your money. Put it in the bank. Keep it safe. And while discipline with money is necessary, discipline without direction produces stagnation. Money that sits without instruction does not grow. In most economies, money sitting in a standard savings account is actually losing purchasing power to inflation every single year, which means the faithful person who saved diligently for a decade may discover that their discipline bought them less than they expected, because the bank was not holding their money. The bank was using their money and paying them a fraction of what that money produced while it was in use. This is not an argument against saving. This is an argument for understanding what saving is supposed to accomplish. Saving is preparation for deployment. It is the gathering phase before the planting phase. The farmer who only ever gathers grain and never plants it does not have a harvest. They have a storage problem. And a storage problem that goes unaddressed long enough becomes a decay problem. Your savings must move, not impulsively, not recklessly, but with strategy, into assets that work, into instruments that grow, into structures that produce. Saving is the beginning of the process. It was never designed to be the destination. The sixth principle, debt is not automatically the enemy. Undisciplined debt is. There is an entire culture of financial teaching that treats all debt as a moral failure. Pay off everything. Own nothing you owe on. And while there is wisdom in avoiding debt rooted in impulse, lifestyle inflation, and poor decisions, there is a category of debt that the wealthy understand differently. They call it leverage. When you borrow money at a lower interest rate to invest in something that produces a higher rate of return, you are not in debt. You are in partnership with capital that does not belong to you, but is working in your favor. The business owner who takes a loan to buy equipment that produces 5 times the loan repayment annually is not being irresponsible. They are using financial design intelligently. The distinction matters. Consumer debt, debt acquired to fund lifestyle, entertainment, status, and comfort, drains the future to pay for the present. Investment debt, debt acquired to fund assets, tools, skills, and systems that produce return, borrows from the present to build the future. One relationship with debt is self-destructive. The other, when managed with discipline and understanding, is how empires are built. The application is not to rush toward borrowing. The application is to stop treating debt as a uniform category. Evaluate every financial obligation by one question. Does this debt serve a producing asset, or does it serve a consuming experience? The answer to that question will tell you everything you need to know about whether to carry it or eliminate it. The seventh principle: financial increase without financial character produces financial collapse. Character is the internal structure that determines what you can carry. When the weight of wealth exceeds the character of the carrier breaks under the load. This is not a moral judgment. It is a structural observation. A pipe built to carry a certain volume of water, forced to carry 10 times that volume, will burst. Not because the water is bad, because the pipe was not built for that capacity. And financial character is built in the seasons that most people are trying to escape. The season of scarcity teaches you what matters. The season of discipline teaches you what you can control. The season of delayed gratification teaches you the difference between what you want and what you are building. The person who bypasses these seasons, who arrives at financial abundance without passing through the development corridor, almost always loses the abundance, because they were given the harvest before they understood the farming. This is why you must stop despising the process you are currently in. The limitation you are experiencing right now, if you are experiencing one, is not punishment, it is curriculum. It is the manufacturer running the product through conditions designed to test and strengthen the internal systems. The product that survives this testing emerges rated for higher load. The product that bypasses the testing looks fine until pressure is applied. And pressure in the realm of finance is always applied eventually. Now, let me interrupt this flow because there is something that must be addressed directly. You have been given time, and time is the only resource that cannot be replaced, refunded, or recycled. Every other resource can be rebuilt. Lost money can be regained. Broken relationships can be restored. Damaged health can be recovered. But time once spent is permanently gone. And most people treat their time as if it were the least valuable thing they possess. They will negotiate aggressively over a small amount of money. They will spend 3 hours to save $15. But they will not spend 3 hours designing the system that eliminates the financial pressure creating the scarcity in the first place. You will protect what you believe is scarce and what you believe is abundant. You will waste. The correction is urgent. Time is not abundant. Time is the most limited and most powerful resource in your financial arsenal. And the way you assign your time is the most accurate predictor of your financial future. Not your income, your time assignment. Your potential is not the issue. Potential is not rare. The graveyard is full of potential that never found assignment. Ability without deployment is not an asset. It is a memorial. You are not lacking the capacity to build financial intelligence. You are lacking the urgency to act on what you already know. And urgency is born when you understand the cost of delay. Every year you delay understanding these principles is a year of compound growth that you cannot recover. The mathematics of compounding are patient and relentless. They reward the person who begins and punish the person who waits with equal consistency. Beginning poorly is superior to not beginning. A small investment made imperfectly now will outperform a perfect investment made 10 years from now, because the years are not neutral. They are either working for you or working against you. There is no financial pause button. The responsibility you carry is not small. You are not just building for yourself. The financial decisions you make in this generation set the trajectory for the generation following you. Your children will not inherit your income. They will inherit your financial beliefs, your financial behaviors, and the assets or the liabilities you accumulate. Which means the person who builds understanding now is not just improving their own life. They are interrupting a generational pattern. They are becoming the first person in their bloodline to understand how money works and deciding that they will not be the last. That is not a small assignment. That is the work of legacy. And legacy is not built by accident. It is built by decision repeated over time in the direction of a clear design. Now let me show you how to make money work for you. The first practical movement is an audit of assignment. Before you invest anything, before you adjust anything, before you eliminate anything, you must account for every unit of money that currently moves through your life. Not to judge yourself, to understand the current system. You cannot redesign a system you have not mapped. Over the next 7 days, document every financial movement, where money enters, where money exits, what category it serves when it exits, how much is serving assets, how much is serving lifestyle, how much is serving debt, how much is serving nothing. This audit will reveal your current financial identity more accurately than any personality assessment you have ever taken, because money follows instruction. And wherever it is going without your deliberate direction, it is following an instruction you gave unconsciously. The second movement is the assignment restructure. Once you have the audit, you assign every category a deliberate function. The minimum threshold to begin building financial momentum is this: at least 20% of everything that enters your hands must be assigned to work, not to spend, not to save passively, to work. This 20% split between emergency reserve, investment instruments, and asset building is your financial seed. The remaining 80% governs your life, your obligations, your lifestyle. And within that 80%, you must distinguish between fixed obligations, things that do not change regardless of behavior, and variable spending, which is where most financial leakage occurs unnoticed. Variable spending is where lifestyle inflation hides. It is where cultural pressure converts your income into other people's profit. It is where the identity work matters most, because a person with a producing identity spends the variable portion differently than a person with a consuming identity. Same 80%, completely different outcome. The third movement is skill monetization alignment. Every person has a producing capacity that has not yet been converted into a financial system. There is something you do naturally, something that costs you very little effort, but costs others significantly in time or pain to accomplish. That capacity is your primary leverage point. It is where you can build a system that pays you without requiring the same exhaustion as trading raw hours. The question is not whether you have this capacity. You do. The question is whether you have been intentional enough to identify it, articulate it, and begin constructing a delivery system around it. This is not a side hustle conversation. This is a design conversation. The manufacturer embedded specific capability into you because the environment you exist in has a specific need that aligns with that capability. When you find the alignment between what you carry and what the market needs, you have found the location where your pipe should be built. The fourth movement is the elimination of financial leakage. Leakage is not the large expenses. Leakage is the accumulated pattern of small, unconsidered transactions that individually seem harmless and collectively represent the difference between financial movement and financial stagnation. Subscriptions that no longer serve a function, convenience purchases that have become habits, status maintenance that serves perception rather than production, social obligations that drain without building. These are not moral failures. They are design misalignments. And correcting them is not deprivation. It is reallocation. Every unit of currency redirected from leakage to assignment is a seed that the previous version of your behavior was burning. The correction does not require dramatic sacrifice. It requires consistent awareness applied over 90 days. 90 days of deliberate spending behavior aligned with assignment will produce a measurable shift in your financial trajectory. The fifth movement is time investment in financial education. This is not optional. This is structural. The person who is financially illiterate in an economy built on financial complexity is at a permanent disadvantage that no amount of hard work can fully overcome. You must assign a portion of your time every week, a non-negotiable portion, to deepening your understanding of how financial systems work, how markets function, how tax structures can be navigated, how legal business structures protect and multiply wealth, how real estate operates as an asset class, how equity in business compounds over time. This is not about becoming an expert in everything. It is about becoming literate enough to ask the right questions, to recognize the right opportunities, and to protect yourself from the wrong arrangements. Financial education is not a one-time event. It is a lifestyle. And the person who treats it as such will accumulate understanding the way a compound account accumulates interest, slowly at first, then with undeniable momentum. The third teaching story belongs here because it speaks to the difference between information and transformation. There was once a man who attended every seminar in his city. He took notes, he bought books, he consumed content. He was the most informed person in his community about financial principles. And he was also financially unchanged. Because information without application is entertainment. It stimulates, it excites, it occasionally inspires, but it does not build. The man knew how compounding worked, but had no account accumulating. He knew how assets generated income, but owned no assets. He knew how investment vehicles operated, but had invested in none. He was a museum of financial knowledge with no factory attached. The correction came not when he learned something new, but when he committed to applying what he already knew within a specific time frame with specific numbers attached to a specific outcome. Transformation is not the accumulation of better ideas. Transformation is the consistent application of correct principles under the pressure of real decision. You already know enough to begin. The question is whether you will allow knowledge to remain decorative or whether you will force it into function. Now, the activation must happen in you, not just around you. There is a version of your financial life that exists outside of what you have experienced so far. That version is not a fantasy, it is a design. It was encoded into the blueprint of your assignment before you arrived in this world. And the distance between where you are and where that design places you is not filled by luck, by connection, by timing, or by circumstance. It is filled by understanding applied repeatedly in the correct direction. You are not behind, you are being corrected. And correction is not punishment. Correction is the most expensive gift a teacher can give a student, price, because it requires the teacher to interrupt comfort in order to deliver truth. You are receiving that gift right now. The only question that remains is whether you will receive it and apply it, or receive it and file it alongside every other truth that came and left without changing anything. The identity you must carry going forward is not the identity of someone trying to get wealthy. That identity is a pursuing identity. And a pursuing identity always places the thing being pursued slightly ahead, just beyond reach. It is an identity built on scarcity. The identity you must inhabit instead is the identity of a steward. A steward does not chase, a steward manages. A steward receives, assigns, accounts, and multiplies. A steward understands that what they carry does not belong entirely to them, and is therefore more careful with it, more intentional with it, more strategic with it. The steward identity produces a different relationship with every financial decision. It removes ego from the transaction. It removes impulse. It removes the need for external validation of your spending, because the steward is accountable to a purpose, not to an audience. Make the decision now, not at the end of the month, not when the circumstances are more favorable, not when the income is higher, now. Because the person who waits for better conditions to begin will discover that conditions never fully cooperate, and that the season they were waiting for was actually the season they were in. The decision does not require a perfect plan. It requires a direction. Decide today that money will no longer govern you. Decide that you will give every unit of currency an assignment before it can assign itself. Decide that your financial education will receive as much consistent attention as your entertainment. Decide that the pipe will be built even while the bucket carrying continues. Decide that the next generation that carries your name will carry a different financial inheritance than the one handed to you. That decision made today, with full understanding of what it costs and what it produces, is the most significant financial action available to you right now. The outcomes on the other side of this decision are not small. When money works for you, your relationship with time changes. You begin to choose differently, not because you are richer, but because your time is no longer fully mortgaged to survival. You begin to see differently. Opportunities that were invisible when you were in scarcity posture become visible when you are in steward posture. You begin to build differently, not reactively, not desperately, but with the calm confidence of someone who understands the design they are operating within. The pain you have experienced in your financial journey is not wasted. It is process. It is curriculum that has been preparing you for the weight of what you are building. The discipline you exercise in seasons when it cost you everything has been building internal structure. The corrections that felt like setbacks were load-bearing experiences. The version of you that emerges from understanding / will be rated for what the vision requires. Your daily checkpoint going forward is not complicated. Every morning before you spend anything, ask one question. Does this decision bring money under my authority or bring me under money's authority? That single question, answered honestly and applied consistently, will do more to restructure your financial life than any sophisticated strategy ever could. Because the sophisticated strategies only work when the foundational relationship is correct. And the foundational relationship is the one between you and the purpose that money is supposed to serve. Stop working for money and start putting money to work. Stop managing survival and start building systems. Stop consuming your seed and start planting your harvest. Stop inheriting financial beliefs that were never tested against truth and start building a financial identity rooted in design, assignment, and stewardship. The pipe does not build itself. The assignment does not execute itself. The decision does not make itself. But when you make the decision, the design activates, and the design activated in the hands of a person who understands it is unstoppable. Be original, not a copy. Die empty. The time is now.